Hey everyone, how's it going today, and welcome to another episode. So today's episode is going to be another reflection where I want to just, as the title suggests, talk about several money related lessons that I learned from losing about $10,000 in the stock market. Now I will say one thing though is that the really great news is that I've also made a lot of much more than $10,000 in the stock market before in net profit. However, I've also opened up multiple portfolios, and I've had a portfolio before lose about $10,000, if actually more than $10,000 before in the past. But of course, there were a lot of life lessons learned, and I treat it as a little bit of an education. But hopefully, if you're watching this video, you can watch it so you don't have to lose $10,000 in the stock market either, so that you can hopefully save yourself in just this like 10-minute or so video. So with that said, let's just get right to this video. But as always, like, comment, subscribe if you guys enjoy videos, hit the bell, and let's get started. So the first money lesson that I really learned from losing all that money in the stock market is probably a little bit more controversial, but it's a little bit more about how you should not work hard, but instead work smart. In other words, work smart over working hard. Because the reality is that when I look back into my stock market investing career, there were a lot of stocks that I think about where I literally bought that stock several years ago and did absolutely nothing. No hard work whatsoever, just left the stock there sitting for just years and years, and today have grown and blossomed over tenfold. This is what happened when I purchased Nvidia about 10 years ago. It happened with Shopify. It happened with a lot of the big FANG stocks that I've purchased back in the day, about 7-8 years ago or something like that. So the idea really behind this one is that, like, a lot of times you don't have to overthink it. In fact, if anything, you are more likely to make a lot of money by just operating and maneuvering yourself efficiently in the stock market than by constantly looking at it and tracking it every single day. A lot of the best investments that I've made in the stock market really happened when I was basically investing passively by just buying and holding the stock instead of just actively trading it. And I think that's probably going to be the first money lesson that I really learned from losing my $10,000 inside of the stock market. Now, the second money lesson that I really learned from my time in the stock market is about how a lot of times when it comes to stock picking and choosing the stock that you want to invest, it is better to buy a very good quality stock, even if it's a little bit more expensive, than to buy a poor stock, even if it's at a very good price. And I learned this actually very interestingly early on, because what really ended up happening is that there were a lot of stocks that I bought at their high when a lot of people said no, a lot of people said it was too expensive, a lot of people said it already pumped up like 3, 4, 5 folds, how much higher can it go? That one of the things that I've really learned is that a good stock will never fail. A truly good stock, if it's truly doing great, if it has something going for it, if it's doing, it's very successful in its financials, its business and everything that's going for it as well, the idea really is that there is no limit. When you buy a really good stock, even if you're buying it at a very expensive price, good stocks will always reach new highs, they will always blossom, and even if they crash down in the near future, if you do like what I told you in the first money lesson, which is about how it's important to work smart over working hard, what ultimately ends up happening is that most really good stocks, even if you see them crash in the near future, eventually they will bounce back and grow and blossom into the future, into the farther future later on anyway. But if you buy a bad stock, a lot of times, even if the bad stock is at a really good fair value price, what ends up happening is that there's also barely any limit, barely, and I say barely because technically the limit is 0, because that's the lowest a stock can drop to, or just 0.0001 cents, because I don't think we've ever had a stock go to 0, but we've definitely had a stock delist, and we've definitely had a stock go to like some very couple of cents kind of value. But the idea really behind this one is that if you buy a very bad stock, even if you get a really good price on it, it can continue to drip and drop, and you can lose even more money. I learned this the hard way because there were a lot of stocks that I bought thinking that I would get a really good value out of it, when I didn't realize that it just wasn't a very good stock to begin with. Whereas there was a lot of top stocks that I bought at their highs after going 3 to 4 folds that have since now gone up multiple folds. The most perfect example of this is if you want to look at the graph of Nvidia and Shopify. Those are two stocks that really, especially Nvidia and AMD. AMD is another really good one. As an example, a lot of these stocks, they went through up and downs over the years, but even if you bought them at the high today, they're all up very significantly. We'll just put it that way. Very significantly. And that's probably going to be the second money lesson to really take out there. Now, the third money lesson that I really learned, and this one is actually very related to losing a lot of money in the stock market, is going to be how important it is to avoid options. Playing options, or if you have to play options, be very conservative and careful about how you play options, because the reality is that from just talking around from a lot of my friends, people that I know in real life, just people that have been in the investing game for several years ago, there are more people that lose money from options than that make money from options. And even if you end up striking it big in the beginning, there's a lot of stories that I've heard of people, and I've even experienced this myself. So it's not just something that I've heard, but it's something that I've experienced firsthand, where you might get a very lucky break in the beginning where you just strike it big and you make a lot of money in the stock market through option trading. But then what ends up happening is that after a while, because you start to kind of push your luck a little bit, you ultimately end up losing it all, or certainly losing it so that you don't make as much as you originally gained in the beginning anymore. So the idea behind this one really is to just try to limit options. I do still recommend maybe learning options more for educational related reasons, so you can kind of understand what it is, understand the concept of how calls, puts, and all that stuff works. But when it comes to long-term investing, just buy and hold, try to avoid options. I know there's a lot of people that will talk about why don't they just sell options, because selling is obviously safer than buying options. But at the end of the day, options are still options, and there's a lot more risk to playing options, regardless of whether you're buying options or selling options. Now, if you're completely confused about everything that I just talked about, because maybe you haven't touched the world of options yet, just know that that's something you don't necessarily have to worry about, because as the point suggests, is that the idea really is just limit, avoid, or just play options very conservatively. If you have to touch options, just be very careful about it, because that's very risky stuff. So that's going to be the third lesson. And then the fourth money lesson that I learned from losing money in the stock market is probably about how important it is to have patience. Patience is going to be the name of the game, because you will go through, especially if you have asked anyone that have been through some kind of down market. We just went through a bear market not that long ago where all stocks basically plummeted, especially in the tech sector. The idea really behind this one is that while it is true that you will face years sometimes where stocks decline, they go down in value, you're playing an uphill battle, it's a very difficult game. The idea really is that in the long-term grand scheme of things, when markets recover, stocks typically, especially if you choose the right stocks, again, that's why you still have to choose the right stocks, but if you choose the right stocks, they will typically almost always go up over a period of time. Now, how long is this period of time? It depends on the stock, but typically several years, after several, I'd say 4 or 5 years, especially if you're in it for the long game anyway, stocks will typically recover. I know, for example, and I'm using this as an example because this is just another perfect example about it, is the stock Nvidia. For example, when I bought Nvidia in the very beginning at its very low price about 7 or 8 years ago, at the time period that I bought Nvidia, I remember I rode it upwards. There were many down periods of times where I know many people gave up, many people said no, many people walked away from it, but I basically just held my stock, rode it up, rode it down, did absolutely nothing, and today it has now blossomed. Now, I've also bought stocks before that after 7 or 8 years have not actually gone anywhere as well, so I will admit that's true as well. But I mean, if you choose the right stocks, and if you don't know how to choose stocks, you can also just choose an ETF. So for example, SPY, SPY, that's a QQQ, those are very common, popular ones. Most of these stocks or ETFs will almost always go up over time if you choose the right one. But if you can't choose the right one, then just go with an ETF, because those are the very go-to straightforward answers. And that's going to be the next money lesson to learn from investing in the stock market. Now, the next lesson that I really learned from investing in the stock market is probably a more of like a therapeutic kind of related lesson to learn if you end up losing a lot of money. And it's really about realizing that while it is true that it sucks to lose money in the stock market, there is just a lot more to life than money. This is not to say that money is not important, because obviously money can change your life in ways that are sometimes unimaginable. You never know, there are people that bought a lot of travel experiences, food, health, necessities that upgraded their life, were able to start a family because of the money they made. But if you are someone that has already lost a lot of money in the stock market, sadly, like I did back in my days during the bear market, where I lost about $10,000 at that time period. But again, thankfully, I've made a lot more money to recover that $10,000 and go even further. But from the time that I had lost that money, the biggest idea really is that there's just a lot more to life than that. So at the end of the day, just treat money as one of those things where it's very, very important, but it's not everything. Hopefully, even if you've lost money in the stock market, you still hopefully have your health, you hopefully have good people around you, or if you don't, you're hopefully trying to focus on trying to change that so that you're in a better place, a better environment, a better social circle, a better scene, a better career path, more fulfillment, better health, all of that stuff combined. Those are things that are going to take you further than, in many, many cases, the amount of money you make, because it starts there before it starts with money. And if anything, even if your goal was to make a lot of money, that's going to help you make a lot of money in the long-term grand scheme of things. But of course, that's really what I wanted to share in today's episode. So thank you guys so much for watching to the end. If you guys did, consider smashing the like button. If you guys haven't done so, consider subscribing, hitting the bell, leave a comment about anything. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.